And, so it's almost a pain that they sell it because it's close, but it's not quite right. Also, and let's just talk a little bit about wood, because this is really important with these windows and saving the old windows. And this is a perfect example. Typically, windows and all the pieces are made out of old straight grain, vertical grain, clear, old growth Douglas fir. It's fantastic. It's as good as redwood. Like everybody thinks redwood is better. Old fir is wonderful. And it really comes down to the cut. And when you have vertical straight clear grain like this, and the window sashes themselves are made out of this stuff, all the pieces were made out of this stuff, you can't buy this stuff. And they're throwing it in dumpsters. It's just the best. So if you can save your old piece, do whatever you gotta do to save it, because it's gonna end up being a better piece than anything you could buy. But some of these pieces, like the sobs, like the party beads, if you go to, don't go to Home Depot for most of this stuff. If you go to like Burnett and Sons, you can get clear vertical grain Doug fir, and it's nice. And you're gonna pay a little bit more for it, but it's worth it in the long run. It's easier to work with, it's gonna look better, and it's gonna work better. So, and I'll have more opinions about that later, for sure. So the upper sash, typically.
So what if you've got the bead for the interior screen?
Mm-hmm. Those come off the bead. They come off with these. They'll be attached.
Oh, okay.
Because the nails that hold them on only typically go into here.
Okay.
Theoretically, I've seen every situation where sometimes it's any combination of that stuff, so you don't really know. You can just take some pliers, and especially if you find the nails, you can just pull off that piece and it'll make it a little bit easier to get this out because this is a bend. It depends on how bad your the condition of your windows is. Now the upper sash, some people know that that's not that they don't realize that that's operable. Because most, I think, when I was, the first apartments in Victorians that I had in the 80s, it was like, all that stuff was all caulked and painted shut. And you're like, if any windows opened at all, you had any ropes that were intact. So the upper sashes especially tend to be more sealed in there. And like I said, sometimes if the ropes are broken, they put screws in to hold it from falling down. So you want to make sure that everything's free. And this one's tricky too, because you want to take your knife and you want to clean the whole edge and get everything off the best you can. And you really want to try to get it to where you can move it out of the way of the pulleys. And then, it's the same kind of thing as the other one. Okay, now you're happy. Because you can get to this party bead easily. To pop that out, you can get to this one easily. And I typically like to get all of those pieces out before I do any more work. And this is the point where I want to talk about tools. Look at the big picture of what you're doing. If you're going to work on, let's say you're going to do all the windows in your house instead of replacing them. That's a great thing to do. New windows, typically when I was a contractor and somebody wanted to put in new windows, you're looking at like $500 to $1,000 depending on the window for the actual unit. And then you have the installation and the trim and how, what kind of creative, weird things you're going to do to make the trim work. It can be $1,500, $2,000 per window for a replacement. That's not going to last as long as these will be. And I'm trying to keep this linear, so bear with me. But also, new windows, the selling point of new windows is that they're really trying to push the energy efficiency. And I know that's a big question that comes up with a lot of people. Properly restored and weather stripped old windows are pretty much the same kind of efficiency as new windows. Plus, people really try to say, well, you gotta have dual paint, you gotta have dual paint. You don't need to have dual paint. We live in Sacramento. It's pretty nice here. There's something like 85% of your energy loss of an old house is something other than your windows. It's usually your roof, your attic, your ceiling, your insulation on your walls, it's that sort of thing. Only 15% comes from your windows. So, given that, you know, you don't need to buy the dual pane argument. And there are problems with dual pane windows where they fog up. And new houses are designed differently than old houses. The old houses were designed to breathe. So if there was a little bit of gap in an old window, it's okay, because for the most part, you're pretty efficient if it's sealed up. But new houses are designed to be like hermetically sealed. So it needs to be perfect. And you need to have all these rubber doodads and everything where it's like stays sealed. If you try to put a perfectly sealed window in an old house, it's just a waste of money, really. But anyway, so I know there's a company in town that does, they take old sashes and they put in dual pane glass. And I'm not a fan of that, because these weights are designed to work with these windows with single strength regular glass in there. Once you start adding dual pane, you change the weight and everything seems to get wonky. And also the thickness of how the glass fits in there. I just don't trust it. I don't know. I think they're kind of seeing it as like, you know, updating old windows, and it might be a marketing thing for their company. I don't know, but I don't trust it, because whenever you do damage to the old stuff, it becomes harder to fix. So it's better to just like keep it the way it was. This design is fantastic. It's a fantastic design. It's been refined for over 100 years or so. And it reached a point where, like some of the earlier windows I've seen are kind of funkier. There's a feature I'll get into on the Stanford Mansion windows that isn't as good as they had by the 20s, mostly because it was 1870s, and they refined that one little thing. So by the 1920s, it was really good. I think since the 20s, 30s, when the old double hungs went away, they were looking for like cheaper ways to do it, and then we ended up with those aluminum windows in the 60s, which are terrible. But this is a great design. It always has been, and I'm surprised that the window industry isn't going back to this kind of thing and making true replacements. And we've gone off on a tangent. So, going back to tools. And let me know if you're getting bored, if you have any questions.
So when did they start using the weight window? Like when did that get invented? Or?
It's really old. I don't know exactly, but it's like, I will say this about California history. And I think it's a big difference between the East Coast window industry and the West Coast industry. They've got a lot more history in the East Coast. They've got a lot more old buildings. There are old window contractors. You can find them for days. There's nothing like that on the West Coast. You're really talking about this design that you really only see windows 1860s to 1920s, you know, out here. You don't have windows from the 1700s like they did back east. So you see a lot less technological advances. But the weight system, I think I've seen it go back to like the 1700s, 1600s. I mean, it's old. And I know there's a whole history of glass and with windows and size and all that stuff that gets really, doesn't relate to California properties at all, because you know, we had it all figured out by the time all the stuff was built. So, tools. If you're going to spend, say, anywhere $1,500, $2,000 on a window for your house, you can afford some really nice tools, and you can buy some really nice materials. And I'm a proponent, having done this for so long. I'm not a rich person, but I buy the better stuff because it's going to last longer and it's going to be more enjoyable to use, and it's just better all the way around. So that's my argument with the tools I'm going to mention, because they work. It just work. A lot of the stuff you can't get from Home Depot, and Nothing against Home Depot, but, you know, the cheap stuff, just, it's frustrating and it doesn't work. And especially with the thing we're gonna talk about next. I was a general contractor before, and general contractors you need to be lead certified. And you take this class, pay this money, all this kind of stuff. And I took the class, and you realize just the amount of bureaucracy involved in what it took to get the lead protocol in place. And lead is a big issue with contractors and with homeowners because it just seems like the big boogeyman. But yet if you're in an old house, lead is real, it's been there, and you know, you have to deal with it. What's interesting is as a general contractor, you need to be lead certified. If you're gonna do a huge lead project, you need to go through the abatement and you need to have there's a lot more expense. And projects end up being like 5 times more expensive. The weird thing is that homeowners don't have to follow the lead protocol, which is kind of crazy because if they don't have the education and they don't legally have to follow it, and they're gonna do the work, that's scarier than hiring a contractor to do it, at any expense. So some of the things that I'll talk about are basically, and I always use the philosophy of, I think if it's less than 6 square feet, you don't have to follow the lead protocol. And I never really added it up, but you're not really dealing with 6 square feet of lead on an old window. So if I'm doing one window at a time, I can just, if I'm doing it safely, I can do it affordable for the client. And you know, there's the thing you learn from the class is there's a lot of just common sense where they're trying to make it law. Like you have to use good sense. But if you use good sense, especially as a homeowner doing this work, and especially if you have little kids, just really be really careful about this because it's a big deal. Lead matters. And this stuff, oh my God, this stuff's so toxic. So that said, what I would do at this point with the window open is, and assuming that you've got tons of coats of lead-based paint on this whole thing, I would take a heat gun, and I haven't really researched how toxic heat versus liquid strippers are. I know liquid strippers are kind of messier for this context.
Liquid strippers are way more toxic than a heat gun.
Oh, good.
A heat gun capped at under 1100 degrees, you can sample and strip paint safely without creating too much of a VOC event. I'm a lead inspector, assessor, monitor. So.
Great, super. You just answered my question, it's taking a lot of research. I always use a heat gun because you have plenty of ventilation. You're at an open window, so that's not really an issue. And you know, if you do wear a mask and protect yourself, you know, it's pretty good. And it's less messy because you can strip all this stuff pretty easily with the heat gun. And that's what I do, and it's the better way to go. So that's good to know. And once all this is stripped for the most part, a fine multi-master, FDIN, it's a German company. They make multi-tools like that you can buy at Home Depot that just don't work. The multi-master I like even more than other quality tools like that because the dust collector works. It has the newer ones have a dust collector that you plug into your vacuum and it works. So you're already just like creating a lot less dust. So I like using that, and so I'll take that tool and I'll sand all this to where it's just like perfectly stripped. The tricky thing is around here, and I'll go to another little nerdy tool thing. I like sharp tools, and you know, I buy these old chisels because they're really good, and the quality of the metal is really good. And I'm a sharpener. If you keep your chisels and plane irons and kitchen cooking knives and all that stuff really sharp, it makes things a lot better. And I can come in here and just kind of like use it as a scraper and very cleanly, you know, clean all that stuff up. And it goes pretty quick. It's pretty satisfying. Because you can get in all of those areas and just maintain a nice clean edge, and it works really well. This stuff, sometimes you just need to like dab a little lacquer thinner on there to get that last little bit of paint out and some steel wool and really takes a lot of time because functionally it doesn't matter, but you're spending so much time on your windows, you just want them to look good too. So I make sure that that stuff's stripped pretty well too. Then you're gonna have these pieces, and they're gonna be full of paint, and they're gonna be ugly. So what I've done with these before is I have a small belt sander and disc sander, and outside, good ventilation, just sand it. And this edge especially, because it's on the, because the window slides on this edge, when people paint, it's always got a big gob of paint right there, which makes the windows fit tighter. If you just take it on your sander or even just like scrape it with your chisel really well and get this clean, hand sand it, whatever you gotta do, you wanna keep this unpainted and keep it nice and flat. Like I said with these, you can actually just clean one side of it and flop one side to the other. And the upper one you can just flip around. Makes it a lot easier. The tricky thing is that these are cut at an angle to match this. So, but the cool thing is that if you have your angle down here, if you flip it over to this side, it's the same thing. And you flip that one over here. It's great. It saves a lot of time stripping. And you get to reuse the old one. So, okay. I love this window because it has a lot of issues that you run into. And one of them is that pulley is janky. It's broken, it's all messed up. You can buy these types, these are really common. You can find them on Amazon for like cheap. And you can just pop in a new pulley if you need to. Otherwise, you can just strip it. So it's not as big of a deal. And you don't run into it that often. More often than not, the pulleys are in decent shape.
So would you pull those out to clean them if they come out that easy? Or would you?
No, because oftentimes they have like these grabbing things where they're just designed to go in. And if you pull it out, it's gonna just fall apart. Getting this out will be kind of a little bit of a pain because you kind of have to like do weird with pliers. But if you try to protect the wood and let that be destroyed because it's already in bad shape, then you can just pop a new one in and then hope for the best. But not that big of a deal. Okay, so the pocket doors. There are different designs for these. This one is pretty common. It's got a rabbit on the inside pieces. And what's interesting, and I can't figure this out, is, and let me do a side profile. So this is the side. We made a cut here, and let's see, a cut here when they made these. So nothing goes through. Now what's interesting is that it's still attached there. So if the ropes have never been pulled apart, that's solid. But on 100-year-old windows, if I'm taking the whole thing apart, I've learned like just replace all the ropes because you're in there. It's probably, if you do it right, it's the last time you're going to be in there. Just replace the ropes. And sometimes that same design, you'll see like, this is more common where you see like these angled cuts instead of the square cuts. So like it'd be angled this way, but it's still the same concept. What I've gotten in the habit of doing, and everybody has a different approach, but I just bang really good there and there, and it'll break the grain right there. And you can take the cat's paw and you can wiggle it a little bit and continue to break it, and you can break this piece out to where it's like this, and then you're happy. Some people who are a little bit more careful and methodical, they'll take their fine multi-master and they'll put a blade on it, and they'll just cut a little bit further to try to get it to where they can get a cleaner break. Everybody has their own different approach, but you have to figure out what's gonna work without destroying this. I've done some window jobs where you pull everything apart and these are missing, or one of them's missing. And then you swear, and then you go to your wood shop and you make one. And you have to make one that fits this spot exactly. So you can do it, it's not a big deal, but it's more work, and you have to have this wood, and it has to be the same, and it all has to fit exactly. So it's just fussy. The other version of these that I've seen a lot, and I think it's a little bit older, turn of the century stuff, is it's square like this, and then it just has a screw hole. I love those, because you just take the screw out and you take the door off, and there's no fussiness, it's great. So if you have those kind of windows, be really thankful, you love those. So, just for kicks, we might as well replace a rope on this window. I've done these two already, we can do one of those. Rope. Samson, number 8 spot cord. It's on the handout. They've been making this stuff for over 100 years. It's what is correct for these kind of windows. I don't know what else or who else that sells the right kind of stuff. Don't even bother. You can get this stuff on Amazon. Just buy a roll of this. It's expensive. Just buy it. It's the right thing, and it's not going to break. It has a nylon core. It's super tough. It's made for this. You can overthink it, but I wouldn't. Okay.
So it's not the full cotton stuff?
It's not the full cotton stuff. The full cotton stuff is way cheap, and there's nothing more frustrating than putting new rope in with the cotton stuff, and then like 5 years later it breaks.
Yeah.
Because, you know, like I said, you want to be in here once, and if you do it right and use better stuff. But the cotton stuff, I think, is just a cheaper, like you can go to a hardware store and they sell it, and like people buy it because it's cheap, and you think, well, rope's rope. Well, this stuff is designed for this, and it makes a big difference. So, because you don't have to break it in 5 years.
The cotton stuff to me looks like old clothesline.
Yeah. Well, and this stuff, the spots even wear off, like they fade over